The Sassy Show is thrilled to partner with Joy Club as our sponsor for this series. Now, Joy Club is an online sex-positive community bringing curious, kinky minds together to connect, learn and play. If you're looking to spice up your social scene or host a sultry event, then Joy Club is a brilliant way of making an impact. But it's not just all about events, honeys. It's also a brilliant way to connect with like-minded individuals who share your passions and maybe even your deepest, wildest fantasies. So whether you want to explore those desires, make meaningful connections, or showcase that uncensored sass, Joy Club has created a safe and welcoming environment for you to do just that. So dive into the world of Joy Club by visiting joyclub.com and let the fun begin. Hello everyone, you are watching The Sassy Show and today we're on a very nice sofa. It is the sofa of this beautiful individual, Giap Tongsayor. Giap, you do much work within the field of conscious kink, a topic and even a phrase that I know we're going to be unpicking throughout this interview. But you are a trailblazer in the world of feminine embodiment. And I feel like today I'd really like you to be able to share your own journey because I know it's involved a lot of overcoming of social stigma and sexual trauma. And these are two things that you really help other women and couples do to reconnect with their bodies, to embrace their sensuality, something we love. And I would say you're highlighting the exploration of polarities within power dynamics. Bit of dom, bit of sub, but maybe it's not dom sub. We're here to talk about it. And I feel very grateful for you to welcome me into this space, which I think is a reflection of the kind of workshops that you lead. There's a nice smell in the air. You've given us tea. A tarot card has been pulled.
Well, you're yet to pull yours.
I am yet to pull mine. Shall I do it now?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I usually like to do, as you can see, my space is always sacred. I think when it comes to intimacy, sensuality, sex, pleasure, it's all about making things sacred and, in a way, your own unique rituals. And mine is awakening senses through incense, lighting candles, tea just to warm up the body, but also bring you back to the sensations of nourishment. And card is a really important thing because I started off as an energy healer after sex work. And what I love to do is actually have all of my guests pull a card and I do a mini reading. So
this is the beginning of
every session. And these cards are very unique because it's very hard to find sex positive, erotic or sensual cards that are not overly sexualized.
Or just white.
So watch your space. But please pull a card. Take your time. As always, this is your journey and your reading.
It says 18, the charm of simplicity.
What am I seeing here for you? So it feels like last year has been quite a lot of things to do, a lot of things to accomplish, a lot of expectations, a lot of needs. And I'm seeing this through, if you look at the picture here, their knees are red. You know, your knees are the things that helps you to stay mobile, to carry you through to the next destination at each goal. It's man, woman by genitals, but energetically we're talking about top, bottom, the different energetics of that rather than the sex. And what it feels like is that both have been going full on like last year. You know, it says the charm of simplicity. It's really calling back your joys and your pleasure. And that's all through what I see here is connecting with nature. The three doves feels to me that you have three unique people that keeps you glued, keeps you centered, bring you peace of mind. They're your anchor points, like the power of three, if that makes sense. There's also a calling here to let, when we say the masculine, the doing energy, think it all together, be strategic and action-based, asking that side of you to rest. So you see here, this masculine human, whatever, is resting and just playing the flute. Like, let it rest and be more in the feminine. So being more in the creative, the connection. And in that, you allow your visions, your desire to grow like the tree.
the fact that you pointed out the red of the knees.
Yeah. You know, maybe last year you've been pulled to your knees. And when we talk about, you know, Dom, sub, and submission being on the knees, but actually there are different ways that we submit on our knees. One is by force and one is by choice. I'm going to be really graphic here, but it's like getting on your knees and giving a blowjob to someone that you enjoy doing it, and then someone holding your head and forcing you. It puts pressure on your knees differently. So, yeah, yes. Different kind of pressure, different kind of pleasure. That's also another way of looking at it.
Thank you. I am drawn to you, especially because you work with these elements of kink and BDSM. Conscious kink, what does it mean?
Actually, this whole talk where everything is all from my own perspective, my own journey. So conscious kink to me, and I want to be really mindful of this because, you know, one of the things we spoke about is that just because you put a word conscious in front of it doesn't mean that you're superior than others. And that's kind of a trend. Everyone wants to be righteous. So to me, being conscious about anything is being intentional. And even if you are intentional with your exploration of kink and BDSM, that is still being conscious. You know, comparing to going to, I don't know, torture gardens or a sex party, kink party for the first time and taking a load of drugs and alcohol and just be like, let's just, you know, whatever, so that you're not accountable for your experience, your body and your pleasures. So I never want to yuck on someone's yum. We meet ourselves wherever we are, but conscious kink is really just being intentional. It's really being connected with your body and present with your body. My experience with sex and intimacy is, you know, has been quite colorful. And why I focus on conscious kink is because I want to make decisions where I'm experiencing things with more awareness. I think sometimes as women, we struggle to receive pleasure or have orgasms because we're so disconnected from our body. And having that intention just allows us to come back to our body to create more capacity.
When you said where we are on our journey, I'm thinking 6 years ago, Bethany didn't know anything about kink and BDSM, was getting wound up in situations that weren't very safe, that did have power dynamics, but it wasn't really communicated. And then also a lot of shame around my vagina, which is something I still have a bit of a separation to and with. And from seeing your work online and also hearing how other people have interpreted it in real life, how I would see what you're doing is bringing ways to heal a lot of trauma and still creating a safe space to explore those dynamics and what kinkiness, because it's usually just painted in one light. Kink.
It is. And I think it's a spectrum, and it really depends who you talk to. It's almost like if you talk to anyone in the, you know, kink community who are doing this professionally, they will always tell you it's a spectrum. Someone will come and think kinky is actually just pulling on, you know, the hair for a little bit or just poking the pubes for a little bit. Someone else's kink would be, you know, choking or gagging. It's such a wide spectrum. And I always say, like, conscious kink, I use conscious kink as a tool for my own healing journey because it was, and it still is, but it isn't a tool specifically for healing. I think anything could be used for healing, again, with the intentions. And that's the key focus here, is being consciously and intentional about how you use these tools to explore and to connect with your body in an intimate way, which is healing overall. The more you connect with your body, the more you connect with pleasure, the more you release the shame and the blockages and the boundaries around that. Because ultimately that's what we want to be, is in embodied pleasure.
When you've shared with me your own sort of journey to get to this point, a lot of the time it's brought up the context of your cultural upbringing and what society has pushed onto you. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that? Yeah,
I was born in Thailand, born and raised between Bangkok, and my village is northeast, so it's what they call the gateway to Isan in Koh Lat. I started doing my research, so part of writing my books and stuff is I wanted to understand what's the makeup of me. And one of the things that I started exploring is actually growing up, I understood that my worth as a Thai woman was always connected to my partner's net worth. And the biggest achievement is, especially coming from the village, is being able to marry a Westerner. And the biggest way to do that is to, hypersexualize yourself and use your femininity to secure and lock your partner, your Western husband. And this would be the pathway to, financial freedom, to safety, security for the whole family. Okay. And that was a really big theme that I witnessed growing up with my mum, with like the women around me, the community. And as I kind of started exploring, understanding why am I the way that I am? Why am I hypersexual? How come, it became easy for me? Not easy, it wasn't ever easy to be in sex work and stuff like that. But why am I so drawn to the understanding of sex, pleasure, intimacy? And when you're kind of raised up in a country where sex tourism is a thing, but it's still a taboo, there's miscommunication for women around that. As a young girl growing up, you're already put in the fear that actually if you're not married by a certain age or if you don't have kids, like then your worth as a woman goes down. So I think all of these conditional programmings and fears, whether it's from cultural fears of actually my mother's or my ancestors' fears of me being a woman without children and how society would deem me as a valued woman, or whether it's how Westerners, it's all plays a part on my relationship with sex and intimacy. And I think it's the very seed that had led me to, the path of like the sexual trauma, but it's also the seed that leads me to the path of holding space for other women and my healing.
Which makes me feel like you're in a really stable place to be able to look at all of that patterns, especially with things like sex tourism that I feel we don't really bring much light. Westerns moving over to places around the world and exploiting it.
Yeah.
And it being this thing that has a long-term effect on a lot of people.
Yes.
That you're able to say, so today, like, I understand that.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of your work is specifically for women who are of different ethnicities, who are people of colour.
Yes.
Is that because you're feeling like there's a lack of that in the industry here?
Yeah, I think there's that aspects as well. And so what's really kind of like turned me on in being focused for BIPOC women or women who's experienced sexual trauma or, sex workers, etc., women like me, is because when I started this healing journey, so I studied like counseling, psychotherapy, psychosexual therapy, and all of these academic studies I did was to understand myself, but also to understand like, my mother and the trauma and how I could navigate through all of that. But when it came to the embodiment of like healing, so I did energy healing, sound healing, and then went into somatic sexual training and female pleasure training, all of these things were great, but everywhere I looked in regards to circles, classes, I always felt left out. I always felt like there was something wrong with me, because in a sharing circle and people talk about, their trauma, their pain, and it always felt like when I came to share mine, I had to tone it down because if I said what I said, as in my cultural upbringings and stuff like that, the response would be like in such shock that I would just close up. And then it just meant when it came to the healing or the energy work, I didn't really feel like the person could hold that space because I didn't feel I'm in an inclusive space. And it wasn't their fault, but it meant that actually some of my trauma, my pain and my experience with sex, intimacy and pleasure isn't something that they've experienced. And with that made me feel I need to create spaces.
Yeah,
which also made me think actually now I have to not hide behind the sound healing and the energy work, but actually share more of me and my whys, which is a really scary. I think at one point I was getting so obsessed with, women of color and like our rights and stuff like that. And then I started looking at, I think I was watching Bridgerton, I was like, actually, back in the Victorian days, some things are still systematic, some things are still patriarchal. That's not down to our color or our race. It's a global thing. And some things aren't. So it's almost like I also have to check myself about it's not just a exclusively for women of color. Actually, a lot of women can resonate with my work and my share. I just would like to create spaces that is focused for BIPOC women so that they could feel safer to come together and to maybe connect.
At the beginning, you guided me to pulling a card. This kind of way that you work, I was wondering how you see the practices like breath work, sensory play, and role dynamics, which I guess I would say is like submissive dominance, which I hope you're going to correct me on. But how do you see that playing a role in helping people reconnect to their body and I guess to their mind?
Yeah. So I'll break it down one thing at a time. So breath work. I love breath play, and I think everyone has heard me say this over and over again. The reason why I stopped being a Pro Domme is because I almost killed a client through breath work. So it's my biggest pleasure, but it's also my biggest downfall. And I think people forget that breath work is still dangerous. Actually, any form of kink play is dangerous. That's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't really know what you're doing, and most of the time we start off not knowing what we're doing, you got to build it up slowly. You got to understand and check in with yourself. Am I doing this because my arousal is actually overstepping the risk factor and stuff? But the way that I work with breath work is what I focus on is actually somatic breath work to begin with grounding. I think the most important thing when I open up the spaces for people is actually, can we just use breath as a way to guide us back into our body? It will always be our anchor. It's also the gateway to check in with your partner of where they are on the spectrum of their pleasures and arousal.
It's like listening to them breathing.
Exactly. I think most of the time through kink and BDSM experiences that part of the arousal is, although we can do as much safeguarding, consent and negotiation at the beginning, but when you're in the play space or when you're in the scene, or even if you're having a hot moment, sometimes check, hey, babe, do you like that? It's like, you're coming out of that hypnosis state, of that arousal, of that dance that's happening energetically between you. So how do I know? Actually, let me look at how your chest is breathing. Let me look if you're actually closing in, but yet you're still leaning forward. Even with breath, when it comes to sex, the way that your body moves, the way that your hips move is aligned with your breathing. So breathwork is really important. One, to set the tone and intentions to ground so that you know that you and your partner are in your body and out of your mind. Two, it's your anchor point to check where you guys are in your arousal and sexual desires so that your body is leading the way rather than your words and rather than all the gimmicks of the tools and the toys. And it's also for aftercare, really important for regulating your nervous system. The worst thing you can do is leave an intense scene and get out into London.
Rush hour.
Exactly, rush hour. Actually, breathwork is a really good anchor to regulate your nervous system. Come together, check in with each other before you leave your play space or your scene.
Oh, I never thought about breathwork in all those different ways, because I am imagining when you're about to kiss someone, it's all about that breath.
Yes, the pause between with the face so close, and you can feel the breath, the warmth of it, the speed of it. All of these things play a crucial part of listening through the body. And that's how you know, because the body will talk to you. And I think this is really important for people. Being in embodied pleasure, what does that actually mean? Does your body want me? Or am I forcing your body to be in a place that I desire it to be? So it doesn't matter if you're topping or bottom. It's always listening to the body and through the breath.
So you touched on a dynamic there.
Yes, power dynamic.
Power dynamic.
Yes. Why I'm moving away from a Dom sub and into top bottom or power dynamics. I think we all have our inner Dom sub, our inner top bottom. I think whether it's 50 Shades of Grey or kink has become the cool thing to do, what does it actually mean and what does it actually look like? What's more enjoyable for me is understanding how to tap into both polarities. I think we all have this inner switch, and depending on how safe, comfortable our partner is, will depend on which one we're leaning more into. Also for women, it depends where we are in our cycle. So working with our power dynamics with our cycle as well is really important, I think.
I associate myself as a switch, but I didn't know that until I was with someone who I think we both switched around.
Yes.
And I felt like it was such a different dance of, it's like a body conversation, a mind, I'm going to say mind fuck, but that makes it sound bad. But you know what I mean? Like that playfulness that can be between sub and dom or top and bottom.
Yeah. I love the switch. And actually, it's really funny because I was talking to my partner. He was asking me how many black straight men are in the kink and poly space. And I was like, actually, there was quite a few black cis men. He was like, but what were they? And I said, most of them were doms. He was like, well, what are you? And I was like, actually, outside of this dynamic, I'm a dom. And I've dated like other doms who says they want to discover being a switch, and they're like, it's really hard to put you in the switch of a sub role because naturally you're quite dominant. For me, being a switch or being submissive actually comes with trusting that that person knows how to hold space for me. And I think that's very small and few. So, which is like a lonely world, right? I find like even when I did like online dating and stuff like that, how fast, and maybe it's part of the work that I do, like holding space, how fast it is for men to drop into their submissive side. And I keep on reminding them, it's not actually submission, it's safety. Because what you're doing here, the same way that I don't like the word submission, I like the word surrendering. I would never ask for someone to submit to me. I'll offer you the opportunity to surrender to my guidance. And in that guidance, I will take you to places that you've never explored before. And that to me is a beautiful dynamic and a beautiful dance. And this is why I don't deal with brats as well. Because like if you're not ready to do the work, then, you know, and the work is all for you. Like none of this is about me, my pleasure, my kinks. Actually, all of this is about I find pleasure, whether I'm holding space for a woman to discover her kinks, her pleasure, her arousal, or, you know, a couple. And I very rarely work with men, but if I do work with a guy, it's, rediscovering, redefining that vulnerable, intimate space of sex intimacy through conscious kink.
How about sensory play? How does that come into it for you?
Everything is, to me, a ritual. Everything to me has a purpose and has a place. I always light 3 incense outside in the gate. And the 3 incense represents the spirit as in like your ancestors, Earth, so Mother Earth, and then the divine. And these 3 incense are lit outside so that the person walks in. The first thing you do is you cleanse yourself, your energy with the incense, but you also awaken your senses through smell. And I have this saying that leave your shit behind before you walk into this door. So everyone comes in with a clear intention to do their work, and it's a safe space. So you'll always see like my house walls have incense or candles. This is really important for the body to start to recognize what's coming alive for them. The whole process of working with the senses is to guide us back to our body. Again, it comes back into we want to come out of our head and we want a full embodied experience. We use these sensory play or sensory deprivation to harness certain elements of the sensation in the body. I think something that I enjoy with kink and BDSM, I love sensory play because when we remove certain sensory and we heighten something else, it really gets you out of your head. And I have neurodivergence, so it's like I'm always heady. But when you take away, put the blindfolds or whatever it is, I'm really having to. Do you know what? I'm just going to say this. We use the word somatic a lot. Somatic therapy, somatic breath. But in Kink and BDSM, this is literally everything we do. Right? Everything is somatic. So you're throwing these like really big words and you're putting like a big price tag on it. And then you go see your DOMs and you're like, oh, it's the same fucking shit, but with more spice and more fun. More latex, yeah. It's really that. It's a somatic embodied practice. And it's a shame that it's been deemed as something dark or edgy when actually it's everything that we need to come back into our body. Which is why I think with this line of work, it's an expensive hobby to have. Latex is not cheap and seeing a Pro Domme is not cheap, but it's because people who are heady and has a lot of responsibilities and stuff like that, it's one of the key ways for them to come back into their body.
Yeah.
Nothing else seems to work.
And sometimes I think it's stepping into a role that helps and leaves the other person outside. Whereas I do get the impression, though, that you're trying to help bring the whole person. Yeah.
And I think we can do that because there's always a place for role play. And I think even on my own healing journey is that having different alter egos and stuff like that allowed me to make peace with parts of me. You know, I use a lot like, you know, we just meet ourselves where we are. There are parts where I write and I talk about, you know, my 13-year-old, my inner child, my sex worker name, my Dom name. And because they all have their own personalities and their own persona. And it's the same way when we come to Kink, you know, or play spaces, they're parts of us, but how do we make peace with those parts of us rather than locking them away? And then that leads to more shame and that leads to more stigma. And if we're going to lock parts of ourselves away, then I think we're moving further away from releasing those shames from society, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's, for me, why I'm coming more open or talking more open and freely about my experiences or about my relationship with sex and intimacy, because I want to love all parts of me. And I really want others to as well.
Yeah. Giap, I feel like your work spans so many different areas. I'm wondering if someone's watching or they've seen your work online, how do they know if it's for them?
You know if it's for you if you resonate with my story. That's the simplest answer. And the reason why I focus on women and couples is that I truly believe that through healing and empowering women, we heal the world. I truly believe that when women understand their own bodies, understand their own pleasures, understand their own boundaries, their own power, it will shift that power dynamic between, you know, top, bottom, whether it's male, female, or whether it's someone who's, you know, a senior, you know, your boss, whatever it is. When women start to understand that actually this is my worth, this is my power, this is my gift, this is who I am, these are my no's and these are my yes, and these are my, you know, releasing of expectations for validation. All of these we've been taught. Once we start to have clarity and we start to create boundaries, healthy boundaries, things start to shift and navigate. It's like a woman is the person driving the car. Someone has to be the vehicle that takes you from A to B, but you are the one that drives everything. So when we start to change, then other people will respond or react, if that makes sense.
Is that from a place of feeling disempowered when you were younger?
Yeah, it comes from like many layers of feeling disempowered. And again, I'll just talk about, you know, heterosexual point because that's majority of my experience, is that my understanding of my role as a woman and how I fit into society or how I navigate that. I think the other thing is the fear of survival without having a man. It's a big thing that I grew up with. And then coming into the UK and not really seeing many female leaders. I actually don't know any woman in the Thai community who is doing what I'm doing or who is like successful entrepreneur, who didn't have to marry a guy to survive or to take care of her family. So it's just something very unknown to me in my world. But I have noticed, for instance, in my own journey, when I started to create these boundaries and be very clear with my yes, my no's, my whys, how people respond differs. Because I noticed that, especially with men, heterosexual men, is that, and maybe this is something that I learned as being a pro dom, when I set out my needs and my expectations, you have the opportunity to meet it or not. When I transfer these skills into a corporate environment, it's the same way. You start to see that this people pleasing, oh, but if I don't do this, then will I get fired? Will he, in a relationship, oh, if I don't do this for him, will he leave me? All of these fears comes from somewhere. But as soon as you step into having these structures of yourself, knowing that no is a full sentence and they will move. They either move out of your life or they'll adapt to where you're going.
Yeah.
But you feel more empowered and you're no longer abandoning yourself. But I think that's why working with women with that will help change men's expectations of women as well, and will help our identity of people pleasing, validation.
I was wondering how that might relate to the ritual side of your work and the sounds. How much stems from what you grew up around?
Yeah. So the last couple of years, I have been going back home to get my ID card, and I call it my reclamation stages. And what I learned in going back and reclaiming my ancestry, because something I haven't shared is I have been really ashamed most of my life of being a Thai woman. The stigma and the understanding of what Westerners think of Thai women has kept me so ashamed of even admitting that I'm Thai. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I feel like that's a lot of our fault. Actually, yeah.
It's not, because everyone has to be accountable. But when I went back to Thailand and I looked at the rituals of, so in the morning before sunrise, we would make food for the monk. And this is a ritual that I love so much, because what it means is that before I feed me, I feed someone else who's in devotion. And how I translate that to like a DS, conscious kink dynamic is that before I feed myself, my devotee will be fed first, because your commitment, your devotion to being a higher sense of service is deserving of reward, nourishment, because you're offering your mind, your body, your safety, your free will to entrust in me. And when I look at everything in my culture, everything is in ritual, and every ritual has a meaning. And when I think about how I approach, kink and BDSM, it is very much like that. I couldn't see anything more rewarding than someone who's so deeply devoted. And I was actually talking to her about this. I was like, Helika, like Tantra's everywhere in Thailand. And I wondered why I was so drawn to studying Tantra, which I did in Thailand for 2 months, level 1 and 2. But it was because in the tantric philosophies, Neo-Tantra, all of this is very much embedded in Buddhism community as well. So that's also part of our rituals, and that's also part in the temples of the paintings and stuff. Sacred sexuality, tantric breath work, connection. It makes sense why it feels so natural and aligned to me, and how when I, come to kink and BDSM spaces, it's integrated in everything I do. So again, when I say conscious kink, it's not saying a bit of tantra and a bit of kink and here we go. Actually, my approach to it is because of my culture and my upbringing.
Yeah, that's so multi-layered.
It is so multi-layered. But it makes the dynamic really beautiful. When I say power dynamics, it's so beautiful to see someone in ritual, even like in a DS dynamic. One of the things I love is actually your ritual is, you come in, there's the whole cleansing process, but then there's a whole bathing of the cleansing process. Like whether it's I want to see you bathe and I want to see you shower slowly. I want to see where do you flinch when I'm watching you? Is it your genitals? Is it your breath? Or is it like just being watched? Or does it turn you on? Like all of these rituals of cleansing and being observed, cleansing yourself before you come into the sacred space of us is also a ritual. And I did that with sex work and as a pro dominant in both sex work. But you get me? Like you don't come into the bedroom, the play space, unless you bloody showered. I don't care what you say. But when you think about the ritual of it and you think about how you can make it fun, inclusive and kinky as well, but deeper, because you was like, oh, I'm just washing my ass. Well, actually,
you're preparing.
Yeah, you're preparing because
you're doing self-touch.
Exactly, because I want to know how you like to be touched. Where are the places that's uncomfortable to touch? Because I will start there. I will start where you find most uncomfortable, and we would pay attention to that area, and we will give it some love, and we will give it attention until your body learns that that place is lovable to touch and to be witnessed.
Which I think gives a little essence of what you're hoping people take away from a workshop with you, or a one-to-one, or a couple. I think you're all about, you're going in deep, baby.
Yeah, it's not very surface level, and I find it sometimes really challenging to explain the type of spaces I hold. Until you get in it, you don't quite understand, because I don't even know how to put it in words. But it is going deep, and it doesn't always have to be, right? Because we spoke about this. You can be pervy, kinky, have fun, have exploration. I love this for you. I love this for me too. But I think I created this space because I wanted to understand and explore it in a deeper way for myself. And because I find more pleasure in being present and intentional with it. But yeah, for sure, of times I would just be a kinky perv in a play space, and that's more than okay.
Before we end the interview, my beauty, what would be your advice to someone who's listened to what you have to say and they're a little hesitant still to explore these topics?
Yeah. Feel that hesitant and ask yourself if you're hesitant with excitement or if you're hesitant out of fear. And neither is right or wrong, but know that there's a space with me for both. Because wherever or whatever workshops you take, you're always going to meet yourself where you are. The first thing is about safeguarding yourself. So every workshop or space, you will always have a secure space where you can go and ground. You know, there's always check-in. The events are not massive in scale where I won't be able to check in one-to-ones. But if you're, hesitant about this, just ask yourself what's drawing you into these sensations. Where are these sensations coming from? Where do they sit in your body, and what story do they hold? If there is curiosity, lean into me.
Yes.
Lean into me. Because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to allow you to be curious with your body, be curious with your kinks in whatever spectrum it's at. Know that there isn't an end goal other than coming to your body and creating more capacity for yourself, whether that's releasing shame or yourself to create space for pleasure.
Capacity in yourself. I love that. Do you have capacity for a quick fire round?
Okay.
Do you?
Okay.
You are on the Sassy Show, Giap.
Yes.
What does your sassy side look like?
My sassy side looks like... I think it has to be my Dom size.
Oh,
yeah, my sassy size is my Dom size, and you always see it when I'm out, and there's just like stupid boys around, and you see the shift in me. It's like it just shifts, it changes, and there's just a different persona. And then you can also get my ghetto sassy side.
Okay, have I seen either? I'm not sure.
I saw a picture the other day. My partner's friend sent. And we were in a club, and I had jeans on, and I rolled my top up, and his face was like with me, and I was like, and I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, that's my sassy side as well. It's when I'm really enjoying the music. We had a dance, you've seen that. We were having a dance, and I thought I was some ghetto rapper star.
You're in your element.
In my element, and I think that's also, sassy side.
That's cute. I like that. Okay, we're going speedy. When do you feel most confident?
When I'm holding space for healing.
And very good testimonials, just saying. Word on the street, you have magic powers. One dream you wish to come true. Just one.
Just one.
Just one. Because I know you.
Publish my book.
I was hoping you were going to say that. I was really hoping you were going to say that. For the camera, what is this book? You've mentioned it a few times.
Oh, okay. So... just like every project, it evolves. So the book is actually originally designed to be my memoir. And it's originally designed to be 7 traumas, my traumas, with alignment with the 7 chakras.
Oh.
And then with the tools that's helped me to move through these traumas. So it's supposed to be kind of part self-support, self-guidance, part memoir. That's now evolving. Who knows where that would go? But that was the intention, is the intention.
It is the intention. You're writing,
I'm
babe.
writing it.
You're writing.
It's a lot.
Yeah. You know when you're like, yeah, I can write a book, and then it's a year later and it's like, still trying.
I think I've been saying it for 10 years, but anyway.
It is evolving.
Yes.
Name a key experience that has shaped you positively.
I'm going to say the most recent one, which I haven't spoken about, but it came up in writing. Working in corporate for white cis men. And that usually I don't say from a positive thing.
That's true.
Yes.
This was a positive. Okay, interesting.
Right. And why it's a positive is I've always, I think, especially with this journey, has had a very strong negative connotation experience with white cis men. One, because of my upbringing and my culture of dominance and patriarchy. But the two executives that I have had the privilege to support and work with has done nothing but empower me. They know about my work outside, they know about my book, they know about my journey as a sex worker, and they continue to support me and to accept me. And it's really helped me heal my relationship with white cis men, which I never thought would happen.
Yeah. And I think I met you just at the point as you were telling them or had told them, which for anyone, and actually this is something you touch on, like anyone who's had that experience, it's not easy to decide to be front facing.
Yes. Yeah. Coming out is a hard thing.
Yeah. So I'm glad that it was a positive one.
Yeah, me too. Because I think when you've had these, you make these life choices, there's so much, again, shame and stigma around it. And especially if you've come out of the industry, the fear of your survival and your livelihood and how working in a new industry, like if someone finds out, again, that holds a lot of shame. So this really has helped me on multiple different levels to release some of the shame of my past as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there is a cause that is close to your heart or a law you'd like to change.
I know there's a lot of talk around sex workers' rights, and I think that's a really important thing is not just sex workers' rights, but programs for those who wants to come out of sex work. If you come out of the army or you come out, from prison, stuff like that, there's loads of support for people who wants to come out of something and shift into something else. But actually for sex workers, it's almost as like nothing at all. And then we're stuck in this cycle. You can't come out of it without some support from society.
And I think from also what you're doing and the spaces you're wanting to hold for sex workers specifically, it's to help them understand their worth and the knowledge they have.
Yes.
And how that can help others.
Yes, definitely, because the world needs them. Yeah. The world needs sex workers to educate, to speak up, to be seen and be proud.
Yeah.
The industry is, they say it's the oldest industry in the world, but the different layers and the different skills we have to embody, right? Where your nurse, your carer, your counselor, your therapist, your sex educator, psychosexual body worker, whatever you want to call it, we are all of those things, and yet we are the most underpaid. And under-recognized and the most stigmatized. Yeah. So I'd love to, one cause is actually this year's holding more spaces for sex workers, whether that's to help them educate and elevate their business into something like bigger of a business, from one to one to one to many, but also space for them to rest and to release and to heal, because our bodies go through a lot as sex workers. Our relationship with ourselves in fitting in with societies, our beliefs, our morale also goes through a lot, and our relationship with pleasure as well, because most of the time we're giving it, sometimes we forget how to receive it.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for all the work that you do.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for all your work.
I look forward to seeing so much more coming from you. If people want to... Oh, I have one more question. What is the best thing about being you?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think I'm a lover of life. I love intensely. I feel intensely. And I want to live intensely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love you. I love you. Yeah, if people want to find your work online, sign up to one of your workshops, you have the Valentine's event coming up.
I do, yes. I have the Valentine's Day event. So that's, Friday the 14th of February. And it's for women and couples. So it's an introduction to conscious kink and the power dynamics. It's going to include a lot of the things we spoke about today. But then for our special VIPs, ticket holders, we're actually going to do some I guess, play scene spaces where I would do guidance and support more intimately, but also some demonstrations. So we're going to talk about what it looks like with someone in their pleasure and working with breath to check in and hypen up the arousal or tone it down for grounding. So all of these things is going to be really delicious and really fun as well. I'm hearing a lot of women wanting to awaken their inner domina, and this is the place for you. Ta-da! Ta-da!
And on Instagram, you are
at Tongsayor, Tongsayor.
And you have a beautiful website with more information if people need it.
Yes, at www.tongsayor.com.
Gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors, joyclub.com, an online sex positive community bringing kinky, curious wonders together from all walks of life. Whether you're looking to spice up your social calendar with those hottest events, share your steamy thoughts and ideas in their lively forum, or set out for a search for that hot date, Joy Club is the ultimate destination to connect with those like-minded individuals. Creating your profile is easy, and it is the perfect way to showcase your unique vibe. Share those sassy photos and explore topics that excite you, and dive into the welcoming community where learning, exploring, and pleasure is encouraged. So if you're ready to bring a little extra excitement and joy into your world, head over to joyclub.com and join the community today.